G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and we join me doing some daily race B from last week where we were at Deep Forest Raceway in Group 3. I decided to choose a little bit of a death trap as I'm demonstrating right now just how easy it is to spin out. That is because I am driving the Audi R8 and it was pretty sketchy, especially through this section coming up as we're about to see as we head over this crest and the car just snaps sideways. And I'm trying to correct it, and I keep going back into the opposite direction of about 2 or 3 tank slapping moments. This was the next opportunity, and yeah, I just try and counter too much before that initial oversteer even happened and ended up going the other way that time. And then on this particular occasion, let's see, do I get through here safely? I think I do finally. It was quite slow though. But your question is probably, as we head down towards turn 1, why have I chosen the Audi R8? Well, I basically just wanted to give myself a challenge. Finally set ourselves a qualifying time without crashing at 29.9, and then as we exit the hairpin on this occasion, there was even a little kick of oversteer there, but look how much time I gained, several tenths on the exit of that hairpin, so clearly I got a pretty terrible hairpin, and that was an improvement to a 29.1. I soon made another improvement to 29.0, about half a tenth improved, and then we found another tenth for a 28.9, dipping into the 28s finally. Found another 3 tenths for a 28.6, found another 2 tenths for a 28.4, and I found the barrier again as we absolutely ruin our good improvement streak there. Crash into the barrier in the first section, crash at a new spot, heading through turn 10 I think it is, and coming out of the hairpin, or coming into the hairpin now. This is the same lap. I crashed 3 times in the same lap, I think. I was very close to restarting. I was like, no, I want to keep this delta. But anyways, we're heading through this opening section again. Oh, we've spun out a little bit later and corrected and hit the barrier on the inside. Really just demonstrating how difficult this car is. Eventually got it together and improved again for 28.4, and I'm going to show you this lap coming up. So breaking into turn 1, I think we were braking just before the 100 meter board, and then take it nice and tight through turn 1. There's sort of a little bit of a low grip surface simulated on the inside there with that different coloured tarmac, so be really careful. Coming through here, just keeping the car nice and balanced over the crest. Make sure we're not turning the car too much so the rear end doesn't have too much kinetic energy swinging around. We get through there nice and safely. Braking just on the end of the tunnel and come in for a late apex here, because you want to be over on the right hand side to make sure you can take this left hand corner flat. Straight line this little curb here, and then braking very gently down the hill. Carry a little bit of throttle, can help settle the car, and then braking just on the start of that lighter coloured tarmac as we head across that bridge. Heading out onto the back straight now, make sure we're shifting up all the gears, revving right to the end of the rev range as is customary in the Audi R8. Not even sure if these little kinks in the straight count as corners. I think some maps do count them. But coming into the very tight hairpin, braking just on the sort of blue and white structure on the right hand side, just after the 150 meter board I think it is. Get it turned, rotated, first gear, squat the car on the rear wheels on the exit, and get a nice launch as we head down the straight through the last couple of corners. Now through turn 13 as per my corner count. I don't think I have an official track map for this just yet, but from what I can see, I think 13 is a reasonable number of corners. We come across the line with a 127.8, and with that little bit of practice under our belt, it was probably 40 minutes or so of practice, we jump into our first race, and we are starting this one in 3rd position. Something interesting to note about daily races now, daily race A and B, while they're still about as short as they were in GT Sport, I think with a couple of exceptions. I actually think the daily race A for the week that I'm recording this commentary is about 12 or 14 minutes long. Goodness me, the Peugeot teammates aren't having any of that. A bit of Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton vibes there. The teammates crashing into each other, and the aggressor gets a 4-second penalty there, so the penalty system is working appropriately. It was definitely quite a gutsy manoeuvre there, going for that move directly into turn 1. And I've completely lost my train of thought about what I was talking about at the start of the race. The daily race this week, there is an exception. The daily race A this week runs for about 12 to 14 minutes, I think it's 14 minutes, so yeah, you're definitely up against the clock to try and get that race there, but we've gone on a slight bit of a tangent here. What I was actually going to go into is, even though they're as short as they were on GT Sport, fuel use and tyre wear are turned on. They're just 1x1x, which I think is going to be the standard for daily race A's and daily race B's, as we're going to make this position up from the Peugeot, serving the 4-second penalty, and that promotes us up into 4th spot. Now, my theory for as to why the tyre wear and fuel use are on is to actually have pit stops enabled, which tells me we could potentially see some form of dynamic weather in the daily races, so that's perhaps something to look forward to as Gran Turismo 7 ages. But anyway, we're up into 4th now, up behind Mistah as we're coming through this middle section. We're about 1 second behind him, and that's what we're going to look for as we head out of this section. Oh, someone's actually spun out. Goodness me, as we have a bit of a moment ourselves, actually getting a slight bit of oversteer, so that's why you need to be on the right-hand side on the entry to that little left kink, because the rear of the car can step out if you turn in too hard. But anyway, as we exit out onto this main straight, or back straight, I guess, long straight section towards the end, we've caught up to Mistah. We'll call him Nissi, just so it can be a little bit easier to talk about through the commentary, and we're about 9/10 behind going into this handling section, so let's monitor that gap as we head through here, because I'm starting to get the feeling at this stage that Peugeot RCZ actually has the advantage in this middle section, because that gap's opened up to 1.1. We make a mistake there actually and just sort of don't scrub off enough speed and end up going a little bit wide, and that's lost us quite a large chunk of time. But even before we made that mistake, we were losing time. Another slight moment heading through that little shallow left-hander. It just goes to show how unstable this Audi R8 really is, and just how deadly it is. But as we exit the hairpin here, that gap's down to just under 1 second, and I think even though that Peugeot has the better handling, clearly has the better handling because it's gaining time through those sections every time we go through there, I think I have the better straight line speed, because as we head down towards the end of this straightaway in the slipstream of the Peugeot RCZ, we've gained a grand total of about 0.4 of a second through this long flat out section. So we're half a second behind now, heading through turn 1. The Peugeot gets a much better apex actually. We were slightly wide, so that gap opens up to about just about 0.6, I suppose. So coming into here, 5.5. Just keep an eye out for that gap as we head through here. The Peugeot RCZ definitely looks a little bit more planted as I'm sliding all over the place. I've made a slight gain through that opening sector there in terms of my lap time, but not in terms of the gap to the Peugeot that has now opened up to 1.1 seconds as we head down the hill through this really easy to crash turn 10 and out onto the back straight one more time. So that gap as we exit out onto the back straight officially is 1.1 seconds. So we lost a good 0.6 through that opening section there, and by the end of the straight here it's back down to 0.8 of a second. So I've made a couple of gains as we headed through that particular lap there, but we're going to be looking to try and keep as close as possible, because the main straight and the back straight on this lap coming up are the last opportunities I have to actually go for a move and get this position done. So as we're heading through this handling section, it's not been too bad so far. I've made a big loss there actually. The gap jumped from 1 second to 1.3. I lost 0.3 of a second within one update of the time gap. So there's clearly a particular corner or two during that section where my car is particularly poor compared to that Peugeot RCZ. Now the Audi R8 was actually one of the best handling cars in GT Sport. Of course we've got sort of reworked physics for GT7, so the characteristics of the cars may not necessarily carry over, and I think that's best seen, or the best example off the top of my head, is actually the straight line speed of the Subaru WRX now. But anyway, as we head into the final hairpin, the Peugeot actually made a bit of a mistake and caught some grass in the entry, so that gap's actually come back down to about half a second, and we have the slipstream now. But the finish line unfortunately is about halfway down this straight portion as we exit the last turn there. The leader's pulled off to the side, not sure what's going to happen there, but it looks like we might gain and grab the position before the line. I think we did actually by about 0.8 of a second, literally 8 milliseconds. We managed to grab that second position, the second podium paying position on the grid. But there we go, fastest lap in the end as well, because we had a nice strong slipstream down the back straight, and that particular driver slowed down, citing a brake error as the culprit, or a brake aurora as the culprit. But anyway, we went into another practice session here. I'm going to show a couple of laps now, because we are going to get a nice terrible turn 1. Actually, it turned out to actually be a terrible one. Look at that, goes to show I don't know what's coming up, which keeps my commentary nice and sort of impromptu, I guess. Definitely unscripted, always running unscripted commentary if you're new, if you're wondering and you're new and you don't know what I like to do. But anyway, we've made good gains, even though we lost probably 0.3 of a second through that first corner. We've made it all back and we're now essentially even. We're probably actually a little bit closer to a 10th down now, but we've gained all the time we lost at the first turn. So it really just shows that I can go way faster than what I've been managing to do. I've set myself basically a like-for-like lap time in this session of a 27.8. 832 against my 801, and as we come into the hairpin we get a nice apex and make a good gain on the exit as well, get a better launch out of the corner. We are actually going to improve on this 27.832 to the tune of about 1.25 tenths, which should put me over the record that I currently have of an 801. So as we race up towards the line, it is going to be just over 1.25 tenths towards the line, and it's going to be a 27.690. I'm going to show you this next lap as well, because remember we made a really bad turn 1. We didn't quite get the corner correct, getting a little kick of oversteer halfway through, and it really wasn't good. And on the exit of that corner we've actually gained close to half a second as we head into this section, letting the car sail over the hump where it gets light, try and keep the car nice and balanced as we head through here, try and get an apex and get on the power without causing us too much oversteer. And we managed to finish up this first sector, and we are about 6.5 tenths ahead at this stage, coming through the corner where it's really easy to crash. The rear end goes light as we dip down the hill trying to make the corner and make sure we brake on time for this corner here, because it's really important to get a launch out onto the straight. It would be right about here where I would sight the length of the straight, but I do not have that information as of yet, unfortunately. But we were about 6 tenths up, and then as we exit the final turn, our car does a little pirouette, and that is that particular lap time down the toilet. But we jump into the next race. We didn't have time to improve on that lap again, unfortunately, so we have to continue on. And there's a few more people in this race because my qualifying time, actually I did improve. It was a 6.9, wasn't it, as opposed to an 8.01 that I had before. But we are now in ninth. So even though we've got a quicker lap time, we're further down the grid, which just tells me that the quality of the drivers on this particular field has drastically increased. We find ourselves up behind another Peugeot RCZ, and we've got to be really careful with the tyre wear on, of course, and the fuel in the car, because fuel use is on. The car's going to feel a little bit different, so the tyres might be a little bit cold, the rear might be a little bit more, I don't know what the word would be, a little bit carrying a little bit more momentum. We actually get a half-second track limit penalty there. Explain that one to me, because we were going through a section with walls on either side, but I guess I overstepped a virtual limit that so exists at a particular corner, and I get a half-second, so we definitely have to watch out for that. I'll probably, looking back, probably avoid the grass on the inside of one of the corners through there. I believe it was turn 6, if I'm looking at my corner numbers correctly. We have to serve that penalty, which puts us off the back of Sieg, and we get overtaken by a Subaru WRX driven by DUI 700. That's a lot of DUIs to have under your belt. He goes deep into the last corner, or the last hairpin there. We give him ample room on the exit, and he has to slot in behind me. But remember, I mentioned before that the Subaru WRX has actually really impressed me with the amount of straight line speed it has nowadays, and we're going to see a demonstration of that as he pulls over to the right hand side and he gets an overlap before I can actually respond and try and defend, and he just drives clean on by in a straight line. Goodbye, Subaru. And he ends up braking a little bit too late for his own good, sails it straight off the track into the barrier, and that particular little attack for this position here in ninth was to no avail. We did not manage to pull it off. So unfortunate for the Subaru driver, but fortunate for me, I get to remain in ninth. Let's not cut the corner again. Yellow flag's out again. Oh, you gotta be joking. You gotta be joking's crashed. See what I did there? Anyway, we're up into 8th. We don't have the slipstream of the RCZ at this stage, because that RCZ did get a pretty good handling section there, but by the end of the straight line sections, you can see we've caught up again. So we're just once again demonstrating that this Audi R8 is actually a little bit better than a straight line than it is through the corners, which is a little bit weird given the MR characteristics and how sort of sketchy it is. Sketchy cars like this historically have meant that if you can get it under control, you're going to get quite a quick lap time. C drives off the track. He's made a little bit of a mistake as we head over the crest, heading through turn 3, and he's ended up 4 wheels on the grass. So what that might do actually is give him some dirty tyres, make it really difficult for him to actually drive the car through this section of the circuit where that Peugeot is actually advantageous compared to the Audi R8, and it might leave me close enough so I can slipstream past as we head down the 2 long straights coming up. But in any case, he does have a half-second penalty, which would probably stop any attempt of him driving away or defending from the position in his tracks. So I'm just going to head down the straight. The penalty serving zone, or the penalty gates as I call them, are halfway down this straight, and he serves that penalty, and I managed to jump up into 7th position. A little bit of a gaggle of cars up ahead. I think someone's quite wide, but I think there's 4 or 5 cars just ahead of me, about 2 seconds ahead of me. So if only I was in that battle there, but I guess that just means I have to drive fast enough. But I know Nissi is up in that as well, so I definitely have the speed to be fighting there. And I've actually caught up to them. They've obviously fought a little bit through that lap, 1.3 seconds behind now. And as we head down the hill towards the finish line, this car ungoes out of nowhere. It's actually the leader from the last race that had the brake error, and we slap into the back of him there. I don't think I was paying 100% attention there. I also didn't really have much time to react, but it's given me front right, front left, suspension wheel damage and front bumper damage, and C gets past me as I'm recovering from that little incident on the main straight, and by the end of the race I wasn't actually able to recover that position back, and I ended up finishing in 7th. It looked like I might have been able to get on the back of that pack ahead, but it wasn't quite going to come off. Once again, another practice session here. I'm going to show you this, braking just before the start of the curb on the right hand side. It's just before the 100 meter board there. I think I said something different earlier in the video, but it's just before the 100 meter board. We've made a gain through there, 1/10 ahead as we head into this section, just turning in, lifting off the throttle, keeping a little bit of throttle on though so the rear doesn't break completely loose, and just sort of carrying the higher gear through there, eventually down into 2nd as we round through oh, it's not quite a hairpin, is it? But it's almost a sort of, it's beyond 90-degree loop there. And there's a second one as we head out of the tunnel, down this sketchy, really loose left-hander, commit to the throttle again, and then braking just on the start of the bridge. Get a nice apex there, and we managed to get to full throttle pretty early. We get a really good exit out of there, and that is us with a 6/10 gain. Now that's on a 28.2 that I've set earlier in the session. Unfortunately, we actually can't see the lap delta to my best lap of a 27.69, but I've got a 28.2 and I'm 6/10 up at this stage, so we're definitely sort of closing in on the realm where this improvement will be good enough to eclipse my record. Let's not spin out of the hairpin this time. We managed to successfully do so, a lot better than we did on our 28.2 in this session. We are 9/10 up, 9.25 up as we head through the last corner. Clip that curb on the inside. We probably could have kept it to the inside here to minimise some distance, but that little time will basically be negligible or negligibly influential, and we come across the line with a 27.3 dead. Now I thought that was a really good lap, but it turns out the records for the week were like a 25. I was also not in the correct car really. I think the Peugeot was actually the faster car around the qualifying time trial. But because I actually have quite a limited selection of Group 3 cars actually, I'm sort of not left with too much choice at this stage, and I only have the Audi, or I have a couple of other Group 3 cars. Oh, we get a massive moment through there, so that's what I mean. That's what I was sort of alluding to before with the chat on the... Oh, another car's crashed as well. We're immediately up into 2nd position. So I was kind of alluding to the cold tyres at the start, sort of touching on the fact that tyre wear is on, which also means that tyre temperatures are on. So we have the cold tyres at the start of the race, and it almost caught us out, and it definitely caught the Peugeot out that started ahead of us. And now we have Valiant Vendetta. I think they're also driving a Peugeot RCZ. So it would have been the RCZ that was dominating the top 10 leaderboard, the world leaderboard that we see now, not just our region, the world. So he's going to have my slipstreams. We're heading down this straight now. The leader's broken away. Darth Chan, I kind of suspect they might actually be a pretty fast guy, like a top split driver, for example. That's who Darth Chan might be, because this particular display here of speed, 3.3 seconds up the road after the first lap, is really quite impressive. But our race is clearly going to be for 2nd spot here. as we're sort of comfortably at this stage inhabiting it, but Valiant Vendetta is close behind, ready to pick up any pieces of anything that may happen, including him going into the back of me here. Sends me a little bit wide at the hairpin, not off the track, and it just allows DUI 700 to capitalise once again. Now, Valiant Vendetta did not complete the overtake there, so it was clearly just a mistake, and he did complete an overtake. I don't have to do any more work to retake my position, so Valiant Vendetta did everything correct there, except the mistake of braking a little bit too late, but that's all good. We can forgive that there. So it's kind of as we were, except I'm now racing DUI, and that's fine. He sends it down the inside this time. Oh, Darth Chan's disconnected. So this race has sort of changed its complexion in the sort of blink of an eye. It's now a race for the win against DUI instead of a race for second. I guess it doesn't really change what we're doing. We're still trying to race and get the best position we can, but now the best position up for grabs is suddenly the win and not just second spot. So definitely a little bit more hangs in the balance here. A little bit more is on offer for doing well in this race. All of a sudden, as DUI gets a little bit of a moment through there, and it should mean that I may be close enough to actually use some slipstream and perhaps at least keep close. We saw how strong that Subaru WRX is in a straight line a little bit earlier in the video. I think it was also DUI, except on that occasion he drove off the track. But let's see this time if he actually manages to keep it on the track, just reining it in a little bit, braking a little bit earlier, being a little bit conservative. And I've actually got nothing for him in a straight line, to be honest, because we're in the slipstream. We were only just gaining sort of in that latter part of the straight. So all through that first part we actually weren't even gaining. So that Subaru WRX has almost had a complete reverse of how it was in GT Sport. It was quite slow in a straight line and was pretty decent in the corners, but now it's really strong in a straight line, and I guess it's okay in the corners because it's not losing too much time. But now that we're really close with the strong slipstream, we are actually able to gain on him there. He's sort of moving all over the place. I don't know where he's committing yet. He looks like he's committing to the right hand side. He does brake quite late again. He's done the same thing into turn one. He's just braking too late. Got to calm it down, just sort of be a little bit more conservative in the race conditions. You actually got to brake a little bit earlier in a race than you do in qualifying, because the car's trimmed slightly differently with the fuel load on board and the tyre wear on. You're not going to have your perfect tyres and no fuel like you do in the qualifying session, so it definitely pays to be a little bit more conservative there. But DUI's learnt from last time. He hasn't driven off the track. He's just broke. He's hit the brakes too late, such that he's just lost a position to me, and I think he's made a mistake on the exit of that bridge, on the exit of the tunnel there. That gap's opened up to 1.4 seconds, so yeah, he's obviously made quite a large hash of that handling section coming off the back of his error at turn one. So again, he's probably just a little bit rattled from that error, and it's sort of translated into further errors, and he managed to fall off the back of me and give me an unheckled road to take the victory with a 7:31. Still a few seconds off what I'd like to be doing, but I think at the end of the day, a win in any case is a really good result. But anyway, that is going to wrap up today's video. If you're wondering where the test season GT World Series races are, I basically don't have time with the way that schedule is at the moment. So if we ever go back to like a Wednesday, Saturday schedule like we had in GT Sport, I'll definitely be able to be more active. But as it stands right now, there's a race like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it's just it's too much. I cannot allocate that much time with everything else I do. But anyway, I'm still around. Don't think I'm gone away. It's just a matter of finding the time to actually race and make the videos like I managed to make this one. I'd also like to wish everyone a happy Easter as well. But that's going to wrap up this video today, so do hit the like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos and streams from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments and constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.